Nicky Charm was born Shannon Eves on February 21, 1966, in California. She grew up during a time when Southern California was undergoing significant cultural transformations. The 1970s and early 1980s brought together a mix of surf culture, punk music, Hollywood nightlife, and a spirit of rebellion that shaped many young people of her generation. Charm's upbringing was fairly ordinary, though she was drawn early on to performance and expression. Friends from her youth often described her as adventurous, independent-minded, and willing to push boundaries. These qualities would later serve her well in her chosen path, as she entered a business where charisma and confidence mattered just as much as looks. Breaking into the scene. By the mid-1980s, Shannon adopted the stage name Nicky Charm, a name that reflected both youthful playfulness and a certain California sparkle. She was still very young when she entered the entertainment industry, but she quickly found her footing. The mid-1980s were a booming time for visual entertainment. The VHS era was in full swing, and demand for new faces was endless. Nicky's appearance, blonde, youthful, with a girl-next-door quality, stood out immediately. She wasn't just a performer, she carried herself with a confidence that made her appealing to both fans and producers. Charm worked consistently through the mid to late 1980s, building a reputation as one of the era's rising stars. Her look embodied the optimism of 1980s California, sun-bleached hair, bright energy, and an approachable personality that seemed authentic on and off-screen. Popularity and persona. What made Nicky Charm unique was her ability to balance innocence with boldness. She could present herself as carefree and playful while also projecting a sharp, self-aware edge. This balance resonated with audiences and made her stand out among her peers. By 1986 and 1987, she was being widely recognized within the industry. Her name was regularly featured in magazines, catalogs, and fan club newsletters, which were essential sources of publicity in the pre-internet era. To fans, Nicky represented youth and fun, a vibrant figure who symbolized the excitement of that golden VHS decade. Her popularity wasn't just about looks, it was about timing. She emerged at the peak of a new technology-driven boom, when home video was transforming entertainment forever. Nicky Charm became one of the names most associated with that transitional period. Stepping away and hiatus. By the end of the 1980s, Nicky Charm began to fade from the spotlight. Some of this was personal. She was still very young and had already experienced an intense amount of attention in a short span of time. The entertainment world of the 1980s could be overwhelming, especially for women who entered it without strong management or support systems. Nicky decided to step back and pursue life outside of the industry. Unlike some of her peers, she didn't attempt to transition heavily into mainstream acting or other careers in the public eye. Instead, she preferred to lead a more private life. A return in the 1990s. In the early 1990s, Nicky Charm made a brief return to the screen. While her comeback was relatively short-lived, it generated excitement among longtime fans who had remembered her from her earlier years. The 1990s brought a very different industry climate, one that was larger, more commercialized, and increasingly competitive. Charm's reappearance, however, was significant. It highlighted the nostalgia factor she carried with fans who had followed her in the 1980s. Even though she didn't stay long in this second chapter of her career, she had already secured her place as a recognizable figure from the VHS era's heyday. Personal struggles and legal challenges. Nicky's journey wasn't without its darker chapters. In 2002, she was arrested in California and charged with burglary and possession of stolen property. These charges led to a conviction, and she served a sentence in state prison. She was released in 2004. For fans who had admired her in the 1980s, the news was a sobering reminder of how difficult it could be for entertainers to transition into ordinary life after fame. Nicky's struggles reflected the reality faced by many who experienced sudden recognition at a young age, only to find themselves without direction when the spotlight dimmed. Despite these challenges, Nicky's legacy endured. After her release, she maintained a lower profile, choosing not to re-enter the industry full-time. This decision allowed her to step back from public scrutiny and focus more on personal recovery. Public perception and legacy. Nicky Charm is remembered as one of the iconic names from the mid-1980s entertainment scene. Her career was relatively brief compared to some of her contemporaries, but it was highly impactful. She represented a youthful energy and spontaneity that defined the VHS era, a time when home video was revolutionizing media consumption. Even decades later, Charm remains a subject of nostalgia. Fans who came of age in the 1980s often recall her as one of the faces of that decade's entertainment culture. Her work continues to be referenced in retrospectives, documentaries, and histories about the business of that time. Charm's story is also a reminder of the double-edged nature of early fame. On one hand, she achieved a level of recognition that many aspire to; on the other hand, she faced personal challenges and legal troubles that highlighted the difficulties of navigating life outside the industry. Influence on the era. Nikki's influence went beyond her individual career. She became part of a generation of performers who defined the 1980s entertainment landscape. Alongside other names of her time, she helped shape the culture of VHS-driven visual entertainment, influencing trends, aesthetics, and fan expectations. Younger performers who entered the industry after her often cited figures like Nikki as inspirations, women who had managed to carve out fame at a young age and leave behind memorable work. Life after the spotlight. Today, Nikki Charm lives largely out of the public eye. While she has occasionally been mentioned in interviews and retrospectives, she has chosen not to actively court publicity. Her legacy, however, remains alive through fans, historians, and archival releases that keep her contributions visible to new generations of viewers. By withdrawing from constant public attention, Nikki has allowed her earlier image to remain timeless, frozen in that bright, energetic 1980s moment when she first captured attention. Conclusion. Nikki Charm's life story is one of rise, retreat, and resilience. From a young California girl stepping into a booming industry, to becoming one of the recognizable names of the VHS golden era, to later facing personal struggles, her journey reflects the highs and lows of fame. Her career may have been brief, but its impact was lasting. Nikki Charm remains etched into the cultural memory of the 1980s, a reminder of a time when home video was king, and a young woman's charisma and energy could make her an icon almost overnight.